Good morning, everyone. I now call the board meeting to order. I'd like to ask that if you would like to address the board this morning, please come to the microphone and identify yourself by name, title, and institution. Thank you all so much for being here. We do have some new board members with us, so I'd like to introduce my fellow board members this morning. We have Dr. Jim Carr of Searcy, Dr. Jerry Cash of Harrison, Mr. Kelly Erstein of Conway, Chad Hooten of Benton, Dr. Kyle Miller of Helena. I believe he's joining us by Zoom this morning. Mr. Lucas Pointer from Bentonville, Ms. Carolyn Reinhardt from Scranton, and our two new board members joining us today are Dr. Catherine Dudley of Little Rock and Ms. Heather Maxey of Mountain Home. So. We also have a few community guests this morning that I'd like to recognize. First, Representative Richard McGrew is here this morning. Thank you. And we have a friend from the chamber world here this morning that's supporting us, and that's Mr. Gary Troutman from Hot Springs. So thank you so much. Before we start with regular business, at this time, I would like to acknowledge a couple of former board members whose terms recently expired. Starting with Mr. Al Brodell, who's here this morning. We'd like to recognize him for his dedicated service from May 2017 through 2023. Al, if you'll come up, please.
You know, should let him make a speech.
Also, we had Mr. Kevin Anderson and Andy McNeil's terms have expired recently, but they were unable to join us today. But if you do see them in your community, please tell them thank you for their service. Before I turn you over to the Finance Committee, I would like to call on President John Hogan for our welcome this morning.
Thank you, Chair Bigger. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to welcome you all to National Park College in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I'm John Hogan, President at National Park College, and I am very nervous to talk in front of my friends and colleagues, so hopefully you'll extend me some forbearance. But I've been asked to tell you a little bit about NPC and the journey that we've been on. And I'm going to give you a couple of facts and then walk you through just where we stand, hopefully quickly. And if you have questions, we can address those. You might be aware that the NPC Nighthawks are the #1 basketball team in the country. So not very many college presidents get a chance to say that. And if I didn't say it, I'd forget. So I got that out of the way. Secondly, the second thing that I want you to know about NPC, which I think is more important and more significant, is that we earned a perfect score on our Higher Learning Commission regional accreditation visit in November of 21. So not very many institutions can say they went through a comprehensive visit and ended up with no findings, hitting all of our criteria, meeting all the criteria. And so I'm very proud of the work of the faculty and staff. And I say that to give you some idea of the quality of the folks that we have working here. At NPC, we focus in or try to discipline ourselves to focus in on the voice of the students. And that conversation for me has carried on for about 9.5 years. We interact in a variety of ways. And in short, this is what we've heard from our students over the last 10 years. They said that we want transfer to work. We want four-year degrees. We want to make sure that when we land at the university that we don't pay a transfer tax. They say that we want housing, we want food, we want to make sure that we have a place to stay that's close to campus so we can be more successful. They want student life, including athletics. They want access to all of the services in one place, the one stop, which the response to that is the facility that you're in today. All of our student affairs are nearby. Students know to come here. They say it makes more sense to them to interface with higher ed if it just comes through in and out the same door. So that's what we've tried to accomplish with this facility. And they also have said we want four-year access to four-year degrees on our campus. So over the last almost decade, we've been working to provide that. When we surveyed students, they said nursing, business, education, computer science. So those were the top four, and those have been fairly consistent as our students have responded. So about 6 years ago, I worked with Dr. Trey Berry. Some of you might remember him. He used to be president at Southern Arkansas University. I remember him vaguely, but he was willing to work with us, and we partnered on 3 on-premise bachelor's degrees. So we've had a very successful run with a bachelor's degree in life science, pre-health, chemistry, pre-health, and computer science. At the May commencement, Dr. Lanou, the provost at Southern Arkansas University, presented 5 diplomas, 5 bachelor's degrees to students as they crossed the stage as part of our NPC commencement ceremonies. So that is a partnership that certainly has benefited. This year, we announced with our friends at the University of Arkansas at Monticello, worked closely with Dr. Peggy Doss, and they have begun offering bachelor's degrees in education and business on our campus. So we had our first students enroll in those programs in the fall. So we're hoping that we even have some graduates this spring. These are programs that are taught almost all by NPC faculty who are serving as adjuncts for the partnering institution. We remain an open campus. We're interested in exploring more of these opportunities, trying to answer the call that our students have sounded. So we're a bit unique in student makeup too, and I want to cover that quickly. We serve about 7,000 individuals every year. 2,500 of those, just over a third, are what I would consider to be credit college students. So students enrolled in a degree program or a certificate program are just over a third of the students that we serve. We're primarily a workforce institution. We have the National Park College Academy, which is our career center. We have adult education. We have about 200 apprentice students who are part of a workforce development. We do a lot of customized and non-credit training. So we have our fingers in many market sectors as a result of just trying to respond to the workforce needs and community needs that lends itself to a lot of partnership capability. So I want to extend my personal welcome to all of you, and especially those of you for whom this is your first meeting. Thank you all for what you do for Arkansas students, especially in Arkansas in general. This is important work. So it requires your attention, it requires your diligence, and I know that our students appreciate it, and certainly on behalf of NPC, I do as well. So thank you all for all that you do. I'm supposed to make sure that I offer you tours after, if you decide that you want to tour campus, and we might be able to get you some autographs of some basketball players that may be worth something someday. Mine will not be, so, but you may have it. But so if you're interested, we'll have a golf cart available and someone to help navigate campus and tell you the story. But with that, if there's anything we can do to make things more comfortable for you, please let me know. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Hogan. So at this time, I'm going I now call this meeting to order. Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones. Just a quick reminder. The first thing on our full board agenda is action item number 12. And that is the minutes of the October 27th, 2023 regular meeting begin on page 12.1 of your agenda book. Are there any questions or changes needed to these minutes?
I would move they be accepted.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Next action agenda item is number 13, and that is the report of the nominating committee. And Commissioner Warden is going to give that report.
Chair Bigger, I'm happy to report the recommendation of the nominating committee and the following officers for the Arkansas Department of Higher Education Coordinating Board. Yourself will retain as the chairperson. The vice chair will be Dr. Jerry Cash, secretary, Dr. Kyle Miller, finance committee chair, Kelly Erstein, academic committee chair, Dr. Jim Carr. So that is the recommendation for the slate of officers from the nominating committee.
Do I hear any? Thank you. Do I hear any other nominations from the board? If not, do I hear a motion to approve these nominations?
I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Action agenda item number 14. Dr. Ken Warden will present the reimbursement of expenses for members of the Arkansas Higher Education Coordinating Board and ICAC.
Members of the board, by statute, we annually have to consider and approve the reimbursement of incurred expenses for your travel and expenses that you do incur when you come to our meetings. And so it is a formality, but we'd like to ask for a motion for consideration of this item to approve and allow us to reimburse and compensate you for your expenses.
Are there any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve the reimbursement of expenses for members of Arkansas Higher Education Coordinating Board and ICAC?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Moving right along. Okay, on to action agenda item number 15. The State Board of Higher Education Foundation election of the Supervisory Committee. I recommend the officers remain the same as this previous year. With that being said, President of the Foundation election of Supervisory Committee will be Dr. Jim Carr, Vice President Chad Hooten, and Secretary Treasurer Dr. Kyle Miller. Are there any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve this the State Board of Higher Education Foundation election of Supervisory Committee?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second from Jerry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Information agenda item number 16. Dr. Warden will present the Commissioner's report.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, fellow colleagues, let me start by thanking Dr. Hogan and his team for their hospitality and all they've done through helping us with our orientation yesterday and our meeting today. I want to give them just another round of applause and appreciate them for all that. If you haven't attended a National Park basketball game, I highly recommend it. It's we had a good time last night, and wow, they have a really good ball club. So congratulations to them on the ball club and on all their other endeavors. I want to begin my report today by talking about a few staff changes within the agency. I'm happy to report we've onboarded 4 new folks since we met last. The first is David John, who has been hired as a financial aid program specialist, started on December 4th. Lozanne Calhoun is a financial aid program specialist that began on December 18th. Katie Matthews was hired as an Engage Arkansas Program Officer, began on January 2nd, as did Miss Zoe Toilette, as also as an Engage Arkansas Program Officer on January 2nd. On another note, Miss Brenda Berry, who's worked with us for many, many years, retired. We're happy to congratulate her on her retirement on December 29th, but she will be missed, and she was a Perkins Federal Program Coordinator. So we're happy for Brenda, but sorry to see her go. A few institutional changes we'd like to recognize today. Arkadelphia native and longtime higher education administrator, Dr. Trey Berry, who I believe's in the audience if he hasn't left us, was appointed at Hendry State University's next chancellor effective January 1. I want to give him a round of applause. Do you mind with Dr. And as most of you know, the American Association of State College Universities announced that Dr. Chuck Welch will become its new president and chief executive officer effective January 15th. He will be sorely missed, but the UA System Board of Trustees has voted and named Dr. Robin Myers, Chancellor Emeritus at ASU Mountain Home, to serve as their interim system president effective January 15th. Myers, who retired after 11 years as Chancellor at ASU Mountain Home, will not be a candidate for the permanent position, but I can't think of a better person to fill those shoes during this search. So congratulations, ASU and Dr. Welch. I didn't see him earlier. Is Dr. Myers with us today? He's not with us. Okay, but congratulations, ASU, and good luck on your search for your new president. Next, Dr. Jerry Thomas has been selected as the new Southern Arkansas University Tech Chancellor effective January 10. He is currently, or was currently, at the writing of this paper, the Vice President for Academic Affairs at National Park, but I understand he's taken the post there at SAU Tech, and I know he's here, so congratulations, Dr. Thomas. I know you'll be missed here, but looking forward to your good work there at SAU Tech, so we'd like to give him a round of applause too, please. Stephen Bloomberg, Dr. Bloomberg, was hired as Chancellor of the Kern County Community College District in California and was served at CARC for 6 years, but will accept that presidency, I think, on March 1st. So hate to see him go, but we're happy to be working with Dr. Stacy Pfluger, who is the provost, was going to take over as interim president as they commence their search. So Dr. Pfluger, congratulations on your appointment, and we're here to help, and we know you've got good things coming down there at CARC. So appreciate you. If we don't mind, give Stacy and CARC a round. This time, I'd like to call Mason Campbell back to the podium to give us a concurrent credit report. Mason.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll be brief in my comments, but we have a new report to share with the board and the public. The Arkansas Concurrent Enrollment Report is an incredibly thorough 40-page report, really gives us a broad set of goals to begin working towards immediately. So in the spring of 2023, our division partnered with Complete College America to pull together a statewide concurrent enrollment stakeholder group for some virtual meetings to evaluate policies and practices, and then develop a menu of potential state and local policy recommendations that might broaden access to high quality concurrent enrollment. And so we did. The meetings were long. They were on Fridays, but the stakeholders brought their A game to discuss how we could all be better. Our discussions ranged from quality and transferability of courses to financial barriers, eligibility requirements, and course access and availability. We found a whole lot of strengths. We also found some weaknesses, and more importantly, we have incredible opportunities in the state. I want to thank Complete College America, the College and High School Alliance, the National Alliance Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, and Dr. Jennifer Zinth, and all of our stakeholders for their expertise and support in the creation of this report. We're hopeful that this broad set of goals will give us a target to begin marching forward. And this full report, along with an executive summary, an abridged executive summary, is now available on the ADHE website for public access. We will also begin distributing some printed copies for the folks that are really close to this work. So please go read this report and help us as we begin a targeted effort to improve concurrent enrollment in Arkansas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mason. And I just want to comment, I think that, if you haven't read that full report, I recommend that you do. When I read it, I didn't see a lot of aha moments, but I saw a lot of validation. And I think there's work for us to do in our concurrent credit efforts. In many cases, we see our institutions discounting a product to serve K-12 students or those that are in high school, which is good for the students, good for Arkansas. However, it's my opinion, it's just fiscally unsustainable. So I do think we have work to do in concurrent credit. I think we need to be looking for ways to standardize those other than just beyond monitoring and keeping up with the MOUs and who's doing what, making sure that, everyone's good actors. I think there's work to do here. It's on my list of things that we need to address in the coming months. But I think if we do a better job at concurrent credit, it's going to be better for our institutions. It's going to be better for our districts and better for our students. So please read the report. If you have feedback for those and you don't feel like you've already been given the opportunity to speak to it, please contact us directly, contact me directly, reach out to Mason. We want your input. We want to improve this situation. And I think there's some good things that we can do, not complicated things, just some fundamental tweaks that we can do to concurrent credit education to give more opportunities for our students and put our institutions in a better situation so that we're not giving everything away and not seeing the return downstream that once we do that. So Mason, thank you for your comments. Please read the report. If there's no questions or comments about that, I'd like to ask Ms. Alicia Lewis to come forward and give us a FAFSA update.
Good afternoon. I know that we are a heavy laden society in higher education with acronyms, but I just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know what the FAFSA actually stands for. That stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And what that is it's a form that we ask students to complete in order to be eligible for federal programs. It's needs-based aid, and they can qualify for things such as Pell, subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans, and then, of course, work study. It is complete. I did this a number of years ago as a student. It's undisclosed number of years ago, so you can't ask me. But I've actually now completed it as a parent too, and I will complete it again with this new iteration very soon. So there's two different types of people that complete the FAFSA. There's students who are in high school, our traditional students who are anticipating going to college. And then there's returning students who are already in college and they're completing it again with the expectation of receiving future aid. These high school seniors in our state are required to complete the FAFSA if they are applying for our state scholarships, which of course we mentioned yesterday that my office administers. So it's a requirement. Most of our scholarships are not needs-based, but they do have to complete the FAFSA. And in completing the FAFSA, it's been a barrier for a lot of students for a long time. It's been lengthy, it's been complex. And in 2021, the federal government passed the FAFSA Simplification Act that was intended to address all of these longstanding issues. After several delays, more complications, and additional laws being passed, the simplification was rolled out December 31st, 2023, and it was 3 months after the normal deadline for opening. So that has presented several challenges that we are going to talk about. The biggest challenge is the delayed launch. It has reduced the amount of time for our institutions to be able to package aid and provide that to our students. So our students in a lot of cases are not finding out what their estimated financial aid package and scholarships and grants are going to be presented to them, and they can make the best decision on where they want to attend college. Another change is unmarried parents who in years past, the iteration is that these students, whichever parent contributed to their well-being, they lived with this parent the most, like over 50%. That was the person who was considered the parent of record. Moving forward, it's going to be whichever parent contributes financially over 50% to the student. So that could be the student that they live with. It could not be the student that they live with. There's supposed to be a parent wizard that says, who is your parent of record? And the students can go in and complete that. But at last, I heard it was not working flawlessly. It is a more asset-driven application as opposed to more income-based. So that really affected people with family farms and small business owners, which obviously the family farms is potentially going to affect a lot of Arkansas families. So some terminology was changed. We like those acronyms, remember? So the FSA ID is now going to be called an account key. And EFC was known as the estimated family contribution, and that is being changed now to the student aid index. Another thing is that email and consent is required because the FAFSA was supposed to be much more simple. So these students are going to, students and families are going to be able to draw on the income tax, the federal IRS data, and it's supposed to seamlessly move over. It went from, sometimes 100 questions to a very simplified 18 questions because of this requirement. The consent is required for students to be able to get aid, but is also required in order for those IRS data to be pulled over into the FAFSA system. All of our institutions will be able to, or it's not even an option, they are required to issue professional judgment for students who have more than one student in college. And for some other extenuating circumstances, all of our institutions have to make a call at the institutional level. And there's also another little hiccup that says students and parents of record have to have separate accounts. So that was really fun. I was in Washington, D.C., and we were all talking about what we were going to do and how we were going to make sure that our students, as they're going to complete these forms, have our information as parents. And one of the federal people from the federal aid office, she said, are you guys going to go ahead and just send your social security number and your date of birth with your student to go to school and complete the FAFSA? And I can tell you that there was no one who raised their hand and said that they would. So there's our few issues that's very glitchy, and we're trying to work through that. But the federal government has said that 4,100 students in Arkansas would get, additional students would get some form of Pell, and 11,600 students would get maximum Pell. So that's a big deal, and we're really hoping that happens, but this condensed time is really presenting a lot of challenges for our students and for our colleges. So this is the things that we're trying to do. We are trying to educate. I have gone all over the state, honestly, and tried to make sure that these students and families and counselors and career coaches know about how to complete the FAFSA, when the deadline is, how we're going to be able to navigate these waters when we're not really sure what is actually happening. And then we have decided as an agency that we're going to conditionally award students. So what that looks like is when students go in and apply for our scholarships, they have to complete the FAFSA in order to be awarded the money. And we're going to be able to go in and say, hey, listen, this is the only thing that you have left to do, but we want you to know that you're going to go ahead and get our scholarship so that they can go ahead and know that, if affordability is a concern for students, and for most Arkansas students it is, they can at least know that they're getting their state aid and that we have extended that deadline for them to be able to complete the FAFSA. So those are the biggest things that are happening with the FAFSA. I will say that as of January the 8th, there was a component that they had failed to include as per the law, and that was an inflation adjustment. And I did just get word this week that they have made that adjustment. I'm not really sure. It's very unclear about how that's going to affect students. If that means it's just another delay and they're just going to increase or adjust the bands for those students who are partially eligible versus fully eligible, or if it's, going to be a little bit more in depth. But it does look like there could be another delay, but at least they are adjusting for inflation, which will obviously affect more Arkansas students. Are there any questions about it, about the FAFSA?
Thank you for your work on this. I know it's not easy.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Any questions for Commissioner Warden?
Mr. Commissioner, thank you for your work. You hit the ground running in this job. We appreciate it very much. I don't think it's been mentioned today that Dr. Hogan is retiring from here in National Park College, so we're gonna miss him. I want to ask a question about the environment, Arkansas higher ed environment. And we have seen all over the country this anti-Semitism on college campuses. Are we seeing any of that in Arkansas?
Personally, I haven't had a single report. You know, that's just me. But I have not. Anyone else? You guys have any problems with the anti-Semitic protests or anything on your campuses? I don't know that we they want to talk about it and take Dr. Carr, but personally, I've not received any comments or questions about those type of activities on our college campuses.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, information agenda item number 17. Ms. Colburn will present the annual report on institutional certification.
Thank you. The Institutional Certification Advisory Committee is mandated by Arkansas law, and the members are appointed by Dr. Warden. They have oversight of out-of-state post-secondary institutions, for-profit institutions, and some private institutions in Arkansas. There are some institutions that are exempt from this oversight. Those are institutions offering only church-related training, institutions on military bases, or institutions in reciprocity agreements. This past year, there are 42 institutions that are overseen by the ICAC. You'll see the breakdown of what types of instruction they provide. These institutions offer 712 degrees. That is 164 more programs that were certified last year and made available for students. And then there's the breakdown of the undergraduate versus graduate programs. Student enrollment and graduations in these programs. As you'll see, there are 6,271 enrolled in programs at these institutions. And the breakdown, there's online enrollment of 3,170 students, and our Arkansas campus enrollments of 3,101, and the total graduates is 1,176. So there are less graduates this year and there are more enrolled, as you can see. This is the breakdown of the levels of degrees that these institutions offer. You'll see the certificates and the Associate of Applied Science degrees and so on. The institutions exempt from certification, there are 45 institutions offering only church-related training. And there are 3 institutions offering programs at military installations in Arkansas. And then there are the out-of-state institutions that are approved to be in a reciprocity agreement. And those are that's the main category of institutions that offer online programs to Arkansas students from out of state. The major reciprocity agreement is called the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreements. The ADHE must approve Arkansas colleges and universities offering these programs for the institutions to be in SARA. Every state except California has joined SARA, and also Puerto Rico, DC, and the Virgin Islands have joined SARA. There are over 2,200 institutions nationwide that are in SARA, and 39 institutions are in SARA in Arkansas. If you'd like to see enrollment information about or from the institutions that are in SARA, you can look on the NC SARA website listed there, and they will give you, there's a lot of information Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have action agenda item number 19. Mr. Campbell will present the minimum core curriculum of high school students recommended for prep for higher education. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got those backwards. We have one more information agenda item before we move on to our action item, and that is the report on academic program review and viability. I apologize.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Baker. So agenda item number 18, program viability report. I want to begin by commending all of our institutions. So the work that they have all done over the last year to improve viability of programs has been extraordinary. Also, just as a reminder, before last January, this report was only delivered to this board once every 3 years. And we have since intentionally adjusted that reporting schedule to bring this to the board every year because it's very important. So this slide shows the viability standards for credit-bearing programs at public institutions, average of 4 graduates per year for CTE degrees and certificates, 4 graduates per year for bachelor's degrees in STEM languages and education, 6 graduates per year for transfer associate degrees in all bachelor's programs, 4 graduates per year for master's specialists and first professional programs, and average of 2 graduates per year for all doctorate programs. So every year, academic affairs staff work with our information systems and technology innovation team to produce a report of all programs not meeting viability standard based on the average number of graduates over consecutive 3-year periods and considering zip codes as the base premise for determining cognated programs. This graphic illustrates which academic years are considered and how the averages overlap within a 5-year period, 2019 to 2023. So keeping in mind that this report focuses on the programs beyond the additional 2 years after being identified as non-viable. Yellow boxes indicate the initial 3-year average, and then we consider additional 3 years beyond to determine whether the program needs to be removed or not. And this allows us to see if any program has achieved viability somewhere within that 5-year window. So if any time in that 5-year window a program is viable, they're not considered for deletion within the policy. So after the preliminary report's compiled, agency staff share this report with each institution and allow institutions a designated time to provide feedback regarding cognated programs, justifications for low completion rates, and then always just to add some context to the data. So the initial report we produced only included programs identified based solely on zip code and zip code cognates. We found 300 programs that needed a closer look. About a third of them were certificates of proficiency, another third being technical certificates and associate degrees, and then bachelor's and above make up the final third. And this list of 300 is really just the beginning of the work. As I mentioned before, we send this list to each institutions, begin looking at program intent, program design. Through those discussions, most of these programs were removed from the non-viable list and were allowed to remain active. Examples of rationale to remove programs include but are not limited to embedded and stackable credentials with different zip codes. So you could have an associate program with a lot of certificates underneath it. Those certificates could have different zip codes, but they are all embedded. So we have to manually do that because we can't see that in the data. Also shared coursework across majors and program levels, unique accreditor requirements, and then statewide initiatives and consortia agreements are considered as well. In addition to those rationale, institutions also voluntarily delete and inactivate programs to their own internal processes. We will see 66 of these. We'll see 66 program deletions and 38 program inactivations come through in the form of LONs before the July coordinating board this year. So this slide demonstrates the progress we've made since over the last couple of years. The yellow bars are the preliminary programs identified as non-viable in January 21. Blue bars are January 22 and green bars are AY 23. We have made progress in decreasing non-viability for almost all award types. And again, this is just the preliminary numbers that we pull based on the data, we've made tremendous progress in non-viability after we work through all of those policy intricacies. So after all the great work with institutions, we only have 9 remaining programs on the non-viable list for you today. And once the programs were identified as non-viable and could not justifiably be removed, the institutions were given an option to either follow ADHE programmatic policy to remove the programs or simply leave them on this list as a mechanism to administratively remove the program. So if the board does not object, these programs will be removed effective February 1st, 2024. And that concludes my report.
One question on that. If a non-viable program, if that institution decides to re-enter that program 5 years later, are they required to submit a new proposal?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's specifically outlined in the policy as well. If we remove a program administratively, or frankly, if an institution deletes any program, they would need to go through the new program process to stand that program back up. Yep.
Just for clarification, the 9 remaining programs on the non-viable list, will they be removed in February or May?
February.
February.
February 1. Yes, ma'am.
So the slide said May, Mason, that's not.
Oh, slide said May. Sorry. It's the 9 will be removed. The 9 will be removed February 1.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad to see that progress being made, and I'm glad that we're looking at this on an annual basis, so there's not surprises, down the road when you get too far with some of these. So, and now we'll move on to action agenda item number 19, and Mr. Campbell will present the minimum core curriculum of high school students recommended for preparation for higher education.
Thank you, Chair Bigger. Arkansas Code 661-17, Section A requires the Higher Ed Coordinating Board to identify a minimum core of high school courses recommended for preparation for college. And additionally, Section B states the Coordinating Board shall also deem a career-ready pathway to a diploma to be equivalent to a high school diploma. I'll take this one piece at a time and begin with Section A. Why are we proposing an update to the minimum core of high school courses for preparation for college? The change is needed because higher education math pathways have changed over the years, and we need to bring them back into alignment. Our state and institutions of higher education have spent years defining and developing relevant math pathways. Perhaps the most meaningful result of the work is the establishment and expansion of quantitative literacy as an important relevant math pathway for student success. College algebra used to be the standard general requirement for math regardless of the degree focus, but that's no longer the case. Our colleges and universities now have strong quantitative literacy pathways developed, and it's time to adjust the high school minimum core to include this pathway. This slide shows the current minimum core on the left and what is being recommended on the right. The first 2 math requirements will remain the same, but the third option is now a specific binary option between Algebra 2 and quantitative reasoning. The fourth option is essentially not changing either. But we've adjusted the language slightly to make sure all options are considered. In addition, some new options will be added to the list as advanced alternatives. This is our first goal in regard to Section A of the legislation that asks this board to recommend this adjustment to the minimum core. In addition to updating the math requirements, Section B of the legislation indicates the board shall deem a career-ready pathway to a diploma to be equivalent to a standard diploma. So first, a bit about the LEARNS Act, specifically readiness component, or the R in LEARNS. The Division of Elementary and Secondary Ed was tasked with developing a career-ready pathway to a high school diploma, and it must include these elements: challenging academic courses, modern career and technical studies aligned with high-wage, high-growth jobs. It must provide students with credentials of value. It must be offered to each high school student. It must prepare students to pursue various degrees, certifications, apprenticeships, the military, and of course, to immediately enter a career field. And the pathway must also be primarily designed for students seeking stackable credentials. So what does that pathway look like? This is a draft that we believe is somewhat close. This is still being reviewed by various stakeholder groups and feedback is still being collected. But nonetheless, the draft is a close enough representation for us to use for purposes today. Green arrows represent requirements for all students completing a high school diploma. The blue bars represent additive components for students to achieve a state distinction. The career ready pathway is one of the pathways that will result in a student achieving a state distinction. To state it plainly, there's no longer an option for students to complete anything less than the minimum core for college preparation, which is included in the standard high school diploma. There's no longer a core and a smart core. Essentially, all students will be in what was considered smart core. And in addition, students have the option to achieve a supplementary state distinction. So in closing, and to bring us back to the original legislation, we brought this agenda item for you today to adjust the math requirements for the minimum core curriculum of high school courses recommended for preparation for high school education as described, and to deem a career-ready pathway equivalent to a standard diploma. Because of how the career-ready pathway has been designed, the second task is actually a moot point, but even so, we must abide by the letter of the law and deem them equivalent, even though they are now one and the same. Upon approval of this agenda item, the Commissioner will consult with the Secretary of Education and the State Board of Education to distribute to students in public schools of Arkansas. And this concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Just a thought. Mason, I wonder, we talked about the minimum requirements. I wonder if we could put somewhere, we strongly encourage all Arkansas high school graduates to take the most rigorous coursework they can. Something to talk about, aspire to something more than just the minimum. Just a thought there.
Absolutely.
If I could, I'd kind of like to speak to that. Dr.
Please,
Clark.
yeah.
So, working with the LEARNS groups and those particularly the work group on a career ready pathway, I think it's been a disservice to our K-12 partners over the years to have a SMART core and a standard core. Because when you have a SMART core and a standard core, because you have a SMART core and a not so SMART core, right? So as we develop a career ready pathway, I was very concerned that we were going to have a high school diploma and a career diploma that was less than a high school diploma. That is not what we need. We need talented young people understanding what their career options are and finding ways to distinguish themselves either for direct college preparatory work or to distinguish themselves into more traditional career ready work upon leaving high school. So I really feel like that this LEARNS pathway does that.
Good.
And so I think that, to your point, I think that's what we're doing that. I want to recognize Ross White. He's back there in the back trying to hide, hoping I wouldn't ask him to come up here, but I just want to recognize Ross, his work in this realm. Ross is a director of a career technical education program, which, as you know, has been realigned with the Division of Higher Education and allowing us to dovetail the higher ed opportunities with the K-12 opportunities in ways that really we just haven't been able to do, from an org chart scenario. So I'm super proud of this work. High school diploma is a standard baseline. Students have the opportunity to organize their classes with some intensive advising so that it sets them it puts them in a situation when they can distinguish themselves in multiple ways that are equivalent in nature as far as rigor and opportunity. So we want talented students to understand the opportunities and not have to seek only one way to distinguish themselves.
I agree. I just don't want them seeking the minimum. Let's
That's
help
what,
them aspire to something bigger.
well, and I think as we continue to do this work, if we can find ways in our school accountability to encourage that activity through our districts, right?
Good.
And then we also maybe, how can we maybe through scholarships or other incentives, we incentivize the districts to do it with accountability scores and factors that help them. And then we incentivize students to say, okay, if you're going to do the extra and distinguish yourself in this way, how can we, help you get into that high wage job quicker or to these advanced learning opportunities in college universities more quickly and get to the degree with less cost, with less time. Maybe we look at some opportunities for enhancing scholarships for those students who take care of that work early. So maybe they do a career diploma or complete so many concurrent credit hours, or maybe they complete an AP or IB diploma, or maybe they go down this career pathway to the point that they're actually saving themselves time and money, but also as taxpayers of Arkansas. How can we incentivize them to take a full schedule in their senior year? At least, I mean, almost half the students in their senior year have 2 holes in their schedule, meaning they're not taking all the classes they can be taking, and then we have remediation rates that are above what they should be. So if we encourage them to stay in their high school program for a full day, engage in these activities to distinguish themselves, that's probably going to end up in a better product for us on the receiving end, so that we can take our students further, faster, for the benefit of everyone involved.
I couldn't agree more. And we know for a fact that the more rigorous the coursework you take in high school, the better your ACT and SAT scores are. We've known that for years. And so I'm good. Thank you for speaking to that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion to approve the minimum core curriculum of high school courses recommended for preparation for higher education?
So
Awesome.
moved. Second.
Awesome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Oh. Information agenda item number 20. Ms. Hazelwood will present the annual enrollment report for us.
Good afternoon. This is an abbreviated presentation for what's included in your board book. Your board report actually includes institutional numbers that we just don't get into during the board presentations. Arkansas enrollment trends. There were 150,786 unduplicated students enrolled in all of Arkansas higher education, including our public universities, our public colleges, our private independent colleges and universities, and our 2 nursing schools. That was a 1-year increase of 2%. You can also see too, we have not yet recovered as a state to where we were before the COVID pandemic hit back in 2019. The 2019 fall number there, 156,069. So we're still 6,000 or so students short of where we were before the pandemic. This is breaking it out by sector. We actually saw an increase in fall term enrollment for public 4-year, our public 2-year colleges, and the private institutions. The nursing schools did experience a slight decrease in their fall head count. Looking at the 4-year public universities, they reported a fall 23 term head count of 94,186 students. This was a 1.6% increase over fall of 22. But obviously still lower than the fall 19 head count of 95,708. For our 2-year colleges, they experienced a 3.6% increase over fall of 22, reporting 41,448 students statewide. And our private independent colleges reported a slight increase in fall of 23 for fall of 23 of 0.6%. They've actually maintained like around 15,000 each fall. They did not experience the enrollment decline that our public institutions saw for COVID. Here's a look at our high school student headcount, and this chart does include our concurrent numbers and our dually enrolled students, although our dually enrolled students only account for like 200 of the total, so it's very small, but I always want to make sure that you're aware when we include dual and when we don't include dual. This is the largest high school student headcount ever for the state of Arkansas. And a look at the undergraduate headcount. We actually experienced a 1.3% increase this year over last year. And this does not include any of the high school students in this. This is strictly undergraduate students, excluding high school. Now we're going to shift from fall headcount, and I have 3 slides for annual full-time equivalency. So what we do is we take the student semester credit hours that students produce throughout the entire academic year that falls between July 1 and June 30th. And we divide undergrad by 30 and graduate hours by 24, and we come up with a full-time equivalency. And the annual FTE trends are in the chart. Trajectory follows fall term enrollment pretty closely. So we reported 106,833, which was a 1% increase over academic year 22. And our 4-year institutions, they experienced a 1.3% increase over AY 22. And this is a 6.1% decline when you actually compare to the last academic year before COVID. And the last one for our 2-year colleges, they reported a 0.3% increase in annual full-time equivalency for academic year 23. That's it for the presentation. Do y'all have any questions?
You're still using 12 hours of full-time?
For
FTE?
if we're calculating for a fall term FTE, we would use 15 for undergraduate SSCH and 12 for graduate. So this was an actual annual calculation. So
With COVID aside, do we have any theories or data as to why we have trended down in higher ed since 2013?
So I would say that it's consistent with national data for higher ed participation rates. I think it has a lot to do with just the narrative of, the expense and return on investment. And I think a lot of that is anecdotal. And I think we get painted with a broad brush where if you look at the expense of education in Arkansas compared to some other states and the opportunities that we have, if you look at all the scholarship opportunities, federal Pell opportunities, the cost of education in Arkansas, really maybe not what our advertised cost of tuition or advertised cost of attendance is. If you get that number down to, if you pinch your pennies of what it costs you, having had a couple students in higher education recently and knowing what the difference is between our advertised cost and what you can do if you're smart with your money, the gap there in return on investment is undeniable. It's not close, but it is consistent with the national trend in higher participation. I will say that it's a focus of mine, of the divisions, of just personally, of what can we do as a division to enhance higher ed participation in the state of Arkansas. One of the things that we have on our plans to do is, you noticed earlier today, we hired 2 new employees in Engage Arkansas. Engage Arkansas is an AmeriCorps volunteer program that has largely been, over the last several years, very highly focused on municipalities and civic engagement in those areas. But there are ways that we are wanting to leverage that unit and those AmeriCorps volunteers more directly to higher ed participation, and having those volunteers more directly placed on our campuses, working with career coaches in high schools. And most AmeriCorps volunteers are very young and also all college students. Having those folks go out on our behalf to work to enhance college participation, among other things that we're trying to do. But I think it's key to the success of our state that we focus in and do everything we can to enhance higher ed participation, not only the recruiting efforts that happens across our campuses, but as a division, as a state, what can we do to show the return on investment that we know is there? So I appreciate your question, but it does trend with national data.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Hazelwood.
thank you.
At this time, Kelly Erstein will present the report of the Finance Committee.
Thank you. The Finance Committee reviewed agenda items 1 and 2 and recommends the approval of agenda item number 3.
Thank you. With that recommendation, do I hear a second to approve agenda item 3 based on the Finance Committee's report?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second.
Any opposed?
Yes, sir.
Thank-
Oh, I come out.
Next, I'm going to ask Dr. Jerry Cash to present the report of the Academic Committee.
The academic, the academic committee has reviewed items 10 and 11, and we recommend the approval of agenda items 4 and 9.
I'm actually going to break these apart for vote this morning. So we have the approval of the Academic Committee on agenda item number 4, which is the Master of Music Education by Arkansas Tech University. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Second from Carolyn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm actually going to note my opposition to this program based on duplication and original interest in it. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5. That is the Master of Science in Counseling by Arkansas Tech University. Okay, we have the recommendation of the Academic Committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
How many? We have 2 oppositions on that one. Thank you. Moving on to academic item number 6. That was the new technical certificate in skilled trades by Ozarka College. We do have academic committee approval. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 7 is the Certificate of Proficiency and Technical Certificate in Automotive Diesel Mechanics by the University of Arkansas Community College in Rich Mountain. We have the approval of the Academic Committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 8 is a technical certificate in paramedic by the University of Arkansas Community College of Rich Mountain. With the approval of the Academic Committee, do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Catherine. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Action agenda item number 9, that is the Institutional Certification Advisory Committee resolutions. We have the approval of the Academic Committee. Do I have a second?
So moved.
Jerry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all. Okay. So that concludes the end of the business portion. At this time, we will accept any public comments by presidents and chancellors. For anyone who wishes to address the board, any comments this morning? I know we're all ready to go to lunch. Any comments?
Yeah.
Now I see a lot of wrestling out there.
David.
The annual trustee announcements this morning, the annual trustees conference will be on March 26, 2024 at UA Pulaski Technical College in North Little Rock. And also the next quarterly board meeting will be held April 26th at North Arkansas College in Harrison. And just a side note, there are box lunches in the back presented by National Park College. So thank you so much. Any other business this morning?
Can you announce the April date one more time? April?
Yes, it is April 26th. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn this morning?
I would move we adjourn.
I'll second. Great meeting.
Thank you.